All right, welcome everybody. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast still, and good afternoon for everybody else joining us throughout the country. My name is Tony Souza. I am the senior manager of curricular programs here at Little Kids Rock. I've been with the organization for about 5 years officially, and for about 12 years as an educator. So very happy to be here with all of you today for the advocacy panel. And just a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it into the chat window. Just keep in mind we will have a section at the end of the session for any questions. So if you want to hold off to them, if you want to hold off until then, that's perfectly fine. And I'm very happy to have 4 amazingly talented panelists here with us today. The first one is Mr. Narek Rome, who is the Vice President of Government Affairs and Arts Education for Americans for the Arts. Narek Rome serves as once again the Vice President for Government Affairs, and his role, he manages federal, state, and local government advocacy grassroots campaigns, policy development, and national coalition building efforts with cultural, civic, and private sector organizations with the goal of influencing public policies that advance direct and indirect support for the arts and arts education. Narek is responsible for promoting the Americans for the Arts message to Congress and the Trump administration. He serves as a senior lobbyist for American for the Arts legislative portfolio, where he researches and pursues untapped federal funding opportunities. And additionally, he is editor of a dozen resource guides connecting cultural projects and initiatives to federal funding programs. He has an immense biography that you can check out as well in the description with more information. So please help me in welcoming Narek Rome. Our second panelist is Kelly Faye Bolander, who is the Arts Education Program Manager for Americans for the Arts. And she manages several member networks and special projects, supports strategic partnerships, and advocates for equitable policy and systems changes related to the advancement of arts education. She previously held the position of Associate Director of Education at the Bow Center in Boston. And also she serves as the associate director that she led for the Bow Center's flagship creative youth leadership and employment programs, including the nationally recognized City Spotlight Summer Leadership Program and Teen Leadership Council. She also worked extensively in college and career readiness training for high school students, developing innovative programming for the Bow Center and the universities at Shady Grove. She served on the board of directors for the American Alliance for Theater and Education and the New England Theater Conference. She earned her master's in theater education with a concentration in theater and community from Emerson College and a bachelor's degree in media and communication studies from University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and a certification in the Advancing Youth Development Curriculum for Youth Workers. So thank you very much. Help me in welcoming Kelly Faye Bolander. Our third panelist is Lauren Shelton. And Lauren is the Visual and Performing Arts Coordinator for the Chula Vista Elementary School District. Ms. Shelton has a strong background in arts education and arts management. She has taught 4th grade, was a music director for the San Diego Children's Choir, led the Centennial Celebration Choir for the Girl Scouts of San Diego, and began the Community Opus project with the San Diego Youth Symphony in 2010. Mrs. Shelton is implementing the return of the visual and performing arts to the Chula Vista Elementary School District using the district's investment of $18 million to employ 94 arts teachers. She also serves as faculty for the Longy School of Music of Bard College Masters of Arts in Teaching program at the Los Angeles campus. Ms. Shelton is a member of the Arts and Power Steering Committee, the Chula Vista TEDx Committee, and serves on the advisory board for Arts Bus Express. Lauren Shelton holds California Teaching Credential, California Administrative Credential, and completed her master's in educational leadership with a focus on arts integration and Common Core standards implementation with honors. In June 2015, she was a recipient of the Yale School of Music Distinguished Educator of the Year Award, and most recently received the Outstanding Administrator Award from the California Music Educators Association at the state and local level. So welcome aboard, Lauren. Very happy to have you here. And last but not least, we have Ms. Mary Lurson, who is the Director of Public Affairs and Government Relations for NAMM, the National Association for Music Merchants, and Executive Director of the NAMM Foundation. Ms. Lurson oversees NAMM's government relations and advocacy efforts that affect support for music education and impact NAMM members as global music product businesses. Her role with the NAMM Foundation focuses on support for music research and philanthropic and public service programs that advance music making opportunities for people of all ages and abilities. Ms. Lewerson leads NAM's efforts to advance music education for all children through the Support Music Coalition, a vast network of global partnership organizations united to create opportunities for people of all ages and abilities to know the joys and benefits of learning and making music. She spearheaded the development of NAM's Gen X and Music Education Days programs that host thousands of university music faculty, students, and music educators at the annual NAM show in California to inspire career options in music, connectedness with the music industry, and advance opportunities for music learning. So please go ahead and welcome Ms. Mary Lewerson to the panel as well. So very happy to have all four of you with us today. And we're going to go over some questions for all of you. We're going to start with Narek and Kelly, and let's get right to it. Okay, so the first question that I have for you is, as you are continuing to advocate for arts education at the federal level, what bills, laws, and or regulations should we as arts administrators be aware of during this time?
Sure, Tony, thank you. And I apologize for the lengthy bio that I sent. I'm happy to join you today. Kelly and I are both at Americans for the Arts, and we appreciate the opportunity to beam in to your conference and share some of the advocacy pieces that we're working on. I'm very happy to join Lauren and Mary as well, with whom Americans for the Arts and I have worked with over the years and are excellent arts education advocates. At the federal level, which is where I spend a lot of my time in terms of arts education advocacy, these last 3 months overall, not just in arts education or even in education, have been incredibly unique and historic in the sense of what Congress has been trying to do, what the administration is trying to do, but really in terms of funding funding in response to a pandemic, funding in response to 20 to 30 million unemployed Americans within that time frame, many of them educators, and I'll come back to that in a second. The response has taken place in 3 ways so far, and we're waiting on a 4th. The first 2 ways, Congress tried to, in February and into early March, tried to provide some early funds for healthcare and some of the disease and containment research towards the coronavirus. And then the third bill, which was called what is typically now called the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, is where there was $2.3 trillion worth of funds that has resulted in several programs that have been of some support in ranges depending on what sectors you're speaking to. But for the arts, for independent contractors in the creative economy, those that are self-employed as artists or creative workers, those that are teaching artists, those that are arts educators in the education system or in the out-of-school time education system, there has been support and ways of finding either paycheck protection, finding unemployment benefits, if that is the case, and certainly new eligibility if you are a gig worker in the education or arts space. There are federal programs that were passed in the CARES Act. In terms of education, strictly speaking, it has been a lagging policy item in the sense of the immediacy from March and when the CARES Act was passed within essentially 10 days of when it was when Congress began grappling with the enormity of the challenge that lay before it and continues to sit in front of us. The immediate focus was on providing a large source of funding to try and retain jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program, allowing essentially $600 billion to be put out. Now, you should realize that in terms of scale, the Department of Defense, the nation's military budget on an annual basis, is $660 billion. And so in one bill, and the annual budget of the United States is about $1.3 trillion. So when a bill shows up in March that wasn't expected at all in February at $2.3 trillion, you should realize the enormity and the scope to which members of Congress and the administration are trying to grapple with the scale of the pandemic at that point, and now, with a lot further knowledge of what is needed and what kind of economic and funding support is needed out there. In terms of education, again, the lagging element here has been and continues to be that schools obviously transition into a hybrid of digital across the country, with some states lagging in those decisions, depending on the impact of the coronavirus. And now, looking forward, there will be enormous revenue shortfalls for many states, certainly states and localities, local governments, in their response and needed funds to combat the coronavirus and COVID-19. What is also a portion of that is the funds that they would have for general education. Those revenues that would get to school districts are going to be depleted because of the lack of economic activity. So in terms of advocacy, what we've been waiting for since that March bill passed is now a fourth CARES bill, or a second CARES bill, depending on how you count these things. In the House of Representatives legislation, which they offered in May as a alternative, or as the next legislative package, they called it the HEROES Act. And in that legislation, which, by the way, was 1,800 pages and a $3 trillion price tag, it includes $90 billion for a state education stabilization fund, and even though education groups were asking for $250 billion. And there is also about $1 trillion, depending on how you count, $800 to $1 trillion, $800 billion to $1 trillion in state and local government funding to help address those depleted revenues from the loss of tax revenue. And some of that can be useful for education purposes. And so right now we're waiting on that to take place. Starting probably next week, the Senate will be offering legislation. We expect that there will be this bill will be completed by early August. And just yesterday, the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, said very clearly that he believes that there must be funds for education in this bill in order to address many of the reopening challenges from not only the depleted revenue and the local funds for operations of schools, but also the added costs of combating the coronavirus in the school setting in terms of PPE and disinfectant and HEPA filters for air conditioning in school settings. That kind of thing is what we're waiting on, and Chairman Alexander certainly is a powerful voice to add in that. I'll just end before Kelly picks it up with the advocacy that we are expecting. While I mentioned a federal update, we very much believe that this is a long-term issue for education and for arts education. And I know that Lauren and Mary will be speaking more directly about the challenges of what local decision-making and school district level challenges in terms of supporting each of the disciplines in either digital or in-person format. But in terms of the lag that I mentioned before, this will be a long-term issue. We are beginning a new phase of arts education advocacy that requires continuing to apply increased pressure on the importance that arts education is essential and must not be dropped or pushed to the side as the schools are making reopening decisions and leaving some subjects behind in their wake. This will take the efforts of all the advocates, music advocates like yourself, and arts education and parental advocates as well. And speaking for Americans for the Arts, I certainly hope that we'll be there to support your efforts along the way. I'll turn it over to Kelly now.
So as Narek said, I think this is a situation where we're not looking just at the next school year. We're really looking at the next several school years worth of protecting arts education from budget cuts. I noticed that in the comments, one of the things that we are seeing is arts educators not only having to maintain funding for their programs, for their jobs, making sure that they're being used to teach the arts as opposed to being redirected into general education. There's concerns about visiting programs, teaching artists, community organizations that help supplement and create enriching programs in the arts. In the schools also having funding and access cut, among a ton of other issues that are coming up around the digital divide and making sure that all students have access to arts education regardless of how it's being delivered. And certainly these are issues that are coming up in the fall, but I think these will extend over the next few years. And what we're hoping to do, as Narek was saying, is really think about all of the different advocates that we have that we're going to need to lean on to create local support groups and coalitions to really make advocacy powerful and palpable, because the need is going to be so great. We just released what is really right now a compilation of advocacy tools and resources called the Arts Education Action Kit, which pulls existing resources that we have around advocacy for arts education, along with resources and highlighting other partners like NAM, like the National Association for Music Educators, and all of the other arts ed discipline groups that have really great resources available to talk about how we can consider arts education in reopening plans right now, messaging that is available for advocacy. I'll share the link in just a moment. Because we know that it's going to be a battle and you're going to need those tools and resources available to you. We'll be continuing to update to that action kit as we start getting more information, as we start having a better sense of what federal advocacy is going to need to be looking like, and as additional messaging is coming up as we're seeing what the local battles are really looking like. I think something that I would also like to add, and this is something I've been working on with the National Parent-Teacher Association, we have a new Arts Ed Leaders Guide, which is it's a revised version of an existing guide that helps parent and family advocates. I think that's going to be a really important part of this this next wave of advocacy. Is we've seen how parents really leaned on the arts in their homes to help bolster education, to help with healing and trauma as young people were experiencing and continue to experience the losses through this pandemic. So this Leaders Guide creates a framework for ongoing advocacy and accountability, and helps parents and families think about what questions to ask their local leaders, how they can build a coalition, not just of parents and families, but with students, with administrators, with educators, and really think about what an arts education action plan could look like. And what measures should we be looking at to see how healthy the arts education ecosystem is within your local school and within your local district. So we'll make sure to get that link up there as well. And I would just say right now, just trying to stay connected with other folks, stay on top of what's happening. The Arts Education Partnership also has some really great resources around data and research that can help with your advocacy needs. They just put together a report on where arts has shown up in all of the state reopening guidelines for schools. So it might be helpful if you're trying to find some strategies or solutions that might be working across the country. They're a really great resource to use as well. I'll turn it back over to Tony, I think, if there's any other questions.
No, I think that's great. And I mean, both of you are already speaking about advocacy, parents advocates and teacher advocates. Speaking specifically about this, what additional advice would you provide to our audience regarding advocating and preserving their district and school music programs? I think right now a lot of teachers are operating in fear that the music programs are going to be cut. So what are some effective strategies that you think would really work right now and provide an impact? And this is for either Narek or Kelly, if you want to jump in.
Well, I have a thought, and maybe Kelly does as well. So one of the I think growing themes as we reach, I guess, 4 months worth of staying at home and different kind of social and physical distancing, is for, and judging by my own kids, the need for continued interaction with your friends, and for students, and certainly in both in and out of school, the arts enable that in multiple ways. They also enable, in terms of activities, a lot of some of the expression and engagement that you find through friendship, and some of that can be done digitally. But of course, arts education in all of its forms, and certainly music education, provides a lot of the interaction that students can gain in terms of some of the social and emotional learning outcomes, and ways to still connect both to either the teacher or the educator, in many ways digitally, but and hopefully at a distance as well. And I think, to the degree that there will be new ways of doing that, or just different delivery methods, that is the pressure to still make those connections, and how the arts can be centered around education delivery. It still needs to be underscored by the advocacy by students themselves, by certainly their parents, and school leaders as well.
So I would also add that, there's a lot happening within the education space right now, and if a lot of districts are starting to invite parent input on reopening guidelines for their district, I would certainly recommend that advocates really try to make use of those open forums and opportunities to share specific recommendations that you have around maintaining music programs and arts education programs for your local district. Because right now this is a great opportunity to get their ear and to make sure that we are making sure we're heard, and making sure that arts education is being considered safely and thoughtfully through reopening. And there's a lot of different ways how that could show up. I think it really is dependent on what's happening in your local district and what your leaders are signaling in terms of their budget priorities and their reopening priorities. So it's really, I recommend taking a look at the resources, really thinking about the different avenues on where you want to be advocating for those supports, and just making sure that you're staying in communication with your local leaders, with your principals, with your school board, superintendents, whoever is open and willing to listen. At this point, you really want to take advantage of that right now.
And essentially, it's being a presence, right? An active presence in these circles and in these conversations, I think is really important. So that sounds really great. Well, thank you so much to the two of you for all of this wonderful information, and for the resources, for the Leader's Guide and the Arts Education Action Kit. I think these are tremendous resources that our teachers can definitely take advantage of it. So if you don't have the chat open, make sure you open that up, and the link for both of them are there. And Eric and Kelly, I know both of you have to run. You have other duties going on today. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great day. And we're going to keep the session moving along.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So now we're going to move it on to Lauren here. So Lauren, as the arts administrator for Chula Vista Elementary School District, can you give a little background about your district? Maybe just kind of like the backstory as far as what's gone on over the last few years?
Sure. So Chula Vista Elementary School District is the largest K-6 district in the state of California, serving about 30,000 students at 46 school sites. And we are starting our 7th year of the reinstatement of the arts. And we started with an arts plan, and then hired 64 arts teachers for the first time in 25 years in 2014. We now have over 94 VAPA teachers, and every child in our district receives the arts as part of their school day. So do you want me to go into the next question too, about how we moved into distance learning?
Yeah, feel free, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when the shelter in place order came from California, I was already at home for a week and a half, dealing with some self-isolation in our family. And so I had time to already grieve the process that we were going to be at home, which gave me time to kind of think of what are we going to do as an arts program in our district. And I think the key thing that we started with was a survey to teachers. We know that every teacher has their own challenge in their home with technology, with family, with just figuring out the whole process. And I surveyed them to see, okay, what are some things that you want to get interested in supporting our team? Because if we didn't come up with a plan would be made for us. And that plan would be somebody who might not know about the arts and what is most important and just say, okay, you guys can do this, but we know because we are the experts as the arts providers. So I said, okay, we know we need YouTube. We know we need weekly lesson plans for classroom teachers. We need a Pinterest, a Flipgrid website. I mean, there were so many things that we needed to start. And so I gave the teachers the option to choose what was comfortable to them. And from there, they blossomed and flourished. So before the shelter in place, we had 2 more days until spring break happened. And we have a 2-week spring break in our district. That gave the teachers time to meet with me and say, you know what, take these 2 weeks, figure things out. If you need to cover yourself with a blanket and watch Tiger King for an entire day, go ahead and do that. Get yourself ready, because when we come back, it's going to be hitting the ground running, and we're going to be running fast. And so once we started the next session, our teams were ready to go. And by the 2nd week of school, our YouTube team was up. Our online lessons were ready to go. And so I think the biggest part of that was that we had a really great relationship with each other. And so we trusted each other to know, okay, you've given us a task, and they went and did amazing things. And I think that was important for our principals and families to see that our arts program was flourishing even in this environment, that our families were still receiving a high quality arts education at home. And it was something that the kids could connect to. And then we started to see that this was what the kids were looking forward to every day, was something that they can do related to the arts. And so we had to really think differently. And the reason why I share this is because we had to have this plan. We had to really formulate something. And I know Mary will probably say this, but I always refer to what she says: if you're not at the table, you become the meal. And so I take it the next step further. If you're not invited to the meal, bring the wine. Eventually they'll be glad you came, right? So you need to be proactive in your planning. And I saw all of our principals just completely flustered in trying to set up their systems. And I said, you know what? Don't worry about the VAPA program. We've got it taken care of. And I think that that's what we need to do as teachers and administrators. We need to have those solutions already at hand and have multiple layers of plans in place so we can be ready to implement something and it's successful. Obviously, we had bumps in the road as we were planning it out, but it really prepared us for next year. And as we're looking to start distance learning again in August, our focus in our district is really on SEL, social and emotional health and well-being of our students. Well, we know as musicians and as artists that that's what is inherent in our work, right? So this is something that we're going to be focusing our program on. And the advocacy is going to look a little different next year, right? We know that if we weave ourselves into the fabric of the school communities, should any funding cuts come in place, it'll be so difficult to tear us out of that fabric, right? We know that our parents love our program. And even last night, our board president spoke about 2 minutes about how proud he was of the VAPA program. So we know we have the support of the key leaders in our district. But that means we need to stay in touch with what's going on next year. And we know our arts program is not going to look the same. And we have to be okay with that. We have to let go that we're probably not going to do band the same way. We're not going to do art the same way. We're not going to have the same routines in place. And we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and understanding to know that it's okay. And this is the perfect time for us to innovate. And so next year, as we're looking at being online, I've kind of elbowed my way into a couple of task forces in our district to make sure that our arts voice is heard. And, I said, well, how about we set the VAPA schedule first? And so that the classroom teachers have to go between our VAPA teacher schedule. So every child is going to receive the arts at least twice a week next year. We're going to make that mandatory so students can access their teachers, access their program, whether that's through live streaming, whether that's through our YouTube channel or Microsoft Teams. And we know that this is going to be essential for their well-being at home. It's going to be a great way for them to connect and to be able to share their emotions, right? And so everything we're going to be doing is going to be through the lens of SEL. We know that's what our district wants. And so we are making sure that we are aligning to that. We don't want to go against it because obviously we need to make that happen. If we go into a hybrid setting, on the task force, I worked with our union representatives for our teachers union, and they're concerned about making sure that kids who are not at school are accessing their platforms. And so I said, well, how about we have the VAPA teachers do the arts integration content? So whatever you're teaching while they're at school, our VAPA teachers are providing that online lesson component when they're not at school. So they could have music on Mondays, Tuesdays have dance, Wednesday have visual art, Thursdays have theater. And all of that is aligned to what they're learning in the classroom. So let's say third graders are learning about Kumeyaay Indians. Well, the dance teachers can do a dance that incorporates the history and how things are represented through dance, music. Everything can be aligned in that. We know that this is not ideal and it's not discipline specific, but it keeps us at the forefront of the parents, the students, and at the district. And I think that that is key. And once we get on site, that's going to be a whole nother ball game. And I have a whole nother plan that I'm working on for that. But just to start out with, how do we get teachers live streaming, VAPA teachers live streaming into classrooms on a daily basis for that SEL focus? So that's kind of our plan moving forward and how we've gotten to where we are. So I think I answered question 1 and 2.
Wonderful,
already.
wonderful.
Sorry, Tony.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. So it seems like, at least on just on the surface, it seems like you have a lot of support from the district and you're actively advocating. Is this something that you would say has always been in place, or you had to kind of work your way up to get to that point?
So I actually started with the San Diego Youth Symphony, and the Community Opus Project was an after-school arts or music program that was an advocacy tool to help the district understand the importance of the arts in their schools. And so everything that we've always done has had the thread of advocacy. We utilize social media on a regular basis. Twitter is always bursting with information, and I challenge my VAPA teachers on a regular basis to post on Twitter to get the community to see what they're doing. Advocacy happens every single day. It's not on a Monday once a month. It's not on a Arts Ed week. It's every single day, and then we double and triple down when the rest of the nation is watching. And our board, we tag them in everything that we put out, and we make sure that everything is visible. We even ask our parents at home when they're doing our activities, tag us on Twitter so you could share your child's work. Well, who doesn't want to share the cool found object name artwork that they've done? And so we start to see the students then wanting to share on Flipgrid what they've composed at home. So it's inherent in everything that we do.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Is there any additional advice that you would like to provide to our audience? Anything that, any last words of wisdom?
Sure. So I spent a lot of time with my teachers over the last quarter, and I always think of our work as, you have to be like you're on a plane. You have to give yourself the mask first before you can help anybody else. And this is a pandemic. We are crisis teaching, right? This is not working from home because we're choosing to. And so we have to remember to take care of ourselves first. And so for myself and for all the other leaders, it's so important to set up office hours. Set up a time that you make yourself available every week for your teachers. I do weekly meetings, half-hour sessions with each discipline, and that's a time where they get to share their successes, share their concerns, and then I give them a district update. It is key, and it also gives me the time to know, okay, I'm not going to get texts all night until 11, 12, 1 a.m. They know that they have that space, and then I know that I can have that time to debrief and decompress. And then, make sure you have your office hour end. At 5 o'clock every day, my husband, doesn't matter if I'm on a call, he'll come around, he'll take the wine glasses and he clinks them together. He's like, okay, it's time for us to sit outside. You need to, make that break. And I think that's so important. And coming from the nonprofit world, we always work 24 hours a day, right? We're on time all the time. And now we have to remember that this is, again, a pandemic. So we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and accept the grace from the teachers. And then relationships, so important with our teachers right now, because I think we have to let them come in and out of our meetings. And if somebody really needs that time to just take a step back, that's okay. Like, they might be dealing with something at home. We have a lot of teachers that have brand new babies at home. How are they going to conduct instruction? We need to make sure that we're giving everybody a bit of grace as they're going through this. And then don't go to administrators with problems, come up with solutions and bring that to them. And then provide opportunities for training as much as you can. NAM has had amazing training. This training has been incredible. I see my teachers are really enjoying all of the lessons that are being provided. And share those success stories. Make sure that the stories of what the kids are doing at home in the arts is visible. You want people to see it, because I tell my teachers all the time, this isn't a time to hide, right? This is the time where you need to get out of your comfort zone and you have to shine, because you are a shining star, and your kids need to be able to share their successes too. And make sure that you're connecting with families, especially your orchestras, and just keep going, just keep pushing through. And HR always calls me a bulldog, because I am like a dog without a bone, or a dog with a bone. I don't let go. And I think it is so important to fight for what you need to fight for, and pick and choose your battles. If something isn't worth fighting for right then, drop it and move on to something else. So that's my words of wisdom.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Lauren. I'm going to move it over to, let's see here, to Mary. And I just wanted to know, Mary, I know we've heard a lot of different information so far. What suggestions do you have regarding everything that we've taken in at this moment?
Yeah, Lauren, I thank you so much for ITSE. Let's just have Lauren keep talking. I think that's
yeah, exactly.
Great advice. And the quote, Lauren, is if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. But I like the way you said it too. That was perfect. And everything you said was perfect. I just wonder if I had a whiteboard next to me, I draw a little picture and I would say, this is what you kind of need to know. The states are coming out with their plans, either out or they're going to be out soon. They're requiring, and they're based on the CDC guidelines. Some are 2 pages long, some are 25 pages long. Kansas is 1,045 pages long. All right, so every state is a reopening plan. They're asking districts then to submit a plan back to the state that tells how the district are going to reopen based on that plan, based on the guidance from the state. And this is where the district where you are hired to work and to be a teacher, be as teaching artist or as a hired teacher in the teachers, in the teacher contract flow, this is where you have to find a way to be active now. The instructional realities of how you're going to adjust to that, and the creativity as an artist to find the wonderful ways to create instruction for students, I think you will be able to do that. This has happened through this whole period. Since March, we've seen just a remarkable creativity and work from our music education sector and the whole arts education sector, and the internet is full of it. But this opportunity right now to clearly express the value of music and arts education now, as these plans are being laid, you have to find a way to participate in the planning process. Now, maybe you're not that person that can barge into a room and say, what's going on? Maybe you can help the person that would do that, and you'd go in with that person to do that. You have to, but I just want to go work in my classroom. Well, in order for you to get to work in your classroom now, because of the serious pressures that are operating in these systems, first of all, most of our administrators want you there. but they don't know how to solve the problem. And Lauren, you said it so elegantly. You know, our administration really values what we do, but they need to, for us or the folks in our sector working in this, to bring solutions for the scheduling, for the alignment to CDC guidelines. Now, with this, you're not alone. So you've got the state, the states coming down to the districts being required of the plan, the arts teachers within, I'm trying to fit myself on the screen here, the arts teachers in the district, if they got a VAPA coordinator or not, the arts teacher in the district coming together with something that will push up into that district plan and make not anybody blink or worry about it, and it just flows up into the plan and it's submitted. It's when there's uncertainty that jobs are going to be lost. When there's people not talking about it and creating the value proposition of why it's so important is when jobs are going to be lost. Now, we've got some great tools available, and I'll see if I can just pop them into the chat. There are guidelines for music education in the reopening of schools, and those have been set by NAFME and the National Federation of High Schools. I just put that in the chat. I think I did. I hope I did. I hope I send it to everybody. I'm not quite sure how the chat works.
Yes, it's there.
There it is. And this is, you know, a multi-page document that's going to tell you step by step what social distancing language, how instruments, how rooms need to be set up. There's also on that organization's website the information about the aerosol study that is just coming out now. This tells us what happens when students are playing instruments and what happens to the air that they expel when they're playing an instrument or singing. They're also saying to teachers, don't raise your voice. Wear a microphone, a tiny microphone underneath the mask. We should not all be speaking loud if we're going to do in person. So there's a lot of details within these guidance documents that you could put into a district plan, and it's going to make everybody feel like, oh, they're operating around some protocol here. They're operating around some standards. And there's also the instrument hygiene guidelines also available at the at this site, and they are also have been reviewed by the CDC. So we've got it, and that document is actually appearing in a lot of the state plans. And that was one of our reasons for doing it, because we wanted to get ahead of all of this, right? So we had to force ourselves to go to the table early. And then at the NAM Foundation, we've got tons of webinars on online learning, and there's the Facebook page that got developed off of those webinars. That's been a great resource to people. I always forget the name of that, the Music Technology Facebook page. So we really would encourage you. And then beg, borrow, and steal. Someone just posted a note about the great New Jersey document that just went up. Their arts education guidelines. Unfortunately, I think this is all going to happen in the next 2 weeks. So if you're not organizing, if you're not with someone else about what it's going to look like and where the arts sit you really need to go to the table. Go to the table. Maybe you already have a phenomenally strong program. Maybe your superintendent is just so gung-ho and the board is so gung-ho. But still, you're going to have to make recommendations and guidance about instruction and time and scheduling, or else it will be done for you. And, the beauty of this wonderful profession is that teachers get to work in really innovative and beautiful and creative ways. And I really believe this is a time for phenomenal comprehensive musicianship training, way beyond the depth of learning that is really not even possible in some ensemble situations, could happen in virtual learning. Connection to students' individual creativity. This is a chance for a true imagination and innovation from the music education sector. And I think for a modern band and all the things that Little Kids Rock works for, this could be a kind of a golden moment. because the last I heard, you don't blow into a guitar or a ukulele. And it's probably pretty reasonable to be socially distanced with a combo of 4 to 5 or 6 kids. All you have to do is look at the latest Rufus Wainwright release of his videos with those wonderful ensembles playing in masks and separated across a room. So, I think there's a lot of figuring out there, and I think there's kind of a lot of winning going on. We just want everybody to win. And we most of all want all our kids to win, and we want them to have, and the last thing I'll say, because I don't want to go over my time, this is the most important thing I could leave you with. This is a time for student-centered advocacy. It's not what the program needs, it's what the students need. And that will also be a reason to make you go over and work on social distancing kids as they stand in bus lines or whatnot. We know that there's that reality of all people on deck to make this work. But that's again the reason to be in the conversation, so you can bring forth the values and benefits of music education and all of this. And don't forget, there's a unified statement, and I can make that available in the chat box too. If you need conversation openers, you take the unified statement and said, I stand with the statement from national organizations why kids need music and arts when they are convening in whatever combination of school is. And it's a conversation starter. It'll get you to the table. All right. So we want to make sure you're just aware of those resources, and be sure you connect with what's available at NAM Foundation. We're updating it and changing it really regularly. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate all of that, the wealth of information. We're about 12 minutes out from the end of our session here. So I want to open it up to questions. If any of you have questions for Lauren or for Mary, feel free to put them into the chat. And while we wait, we have about a 20-second delay, so it's going to take a few moments for those questions to pop up. But generally, the common theme, what I'm hearing is make sure you're at the table, make sure you're in the conversation, and I'm hearing a lot of also coalition building, right? This idea of making sure that you have parents involved, you have students involved, you have superintendents, principals, everybody that could essentially be your ally.
And I want to add something about that. That word coalition is another very scary word, right? Advocacy is a very scary word. I think we've demystified advocacy a lot over the years. But just remember, a coalition is where 2 or 3 people are gathered together. You have a coalition. 2. All right? So it's not like all of a sudden you have to go out and create a campaign structure to get someone voted to the Senate. Okay? That's what coalitions do too. And that's what scares us about the word coalition. So 2 people could create a conversation, and the train is leaving the station. So we want to, make this obtainable for everybody to go out and start doing.
Tony, can I address a comment in the chat real quick?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That's what this stands for.
Arturo, I see your comment, and I completely understand. And so I think the conversation has to change. I think as the artists and the musicians and the teachers, we have to be on the same language. We already know that everything we do is inherently SEL, but what vocabulary can we insert into our narrative when talking to principals that they understand through SEL? And New Jersey also has an SEL and arts website that I've posted in the link. Look at it and check it out. It's my guide right now on how to change the narrative and use the vocabulary of SEL and what we already do. And in order to, you're not taking on another role, you're just twisting the way you talk about it, I think is the most important way too, because what you do, like I said, is already social and emotionally important for children. And have your students post whatever you use, if it's Class Dojo or Microsoft Teams or Google Classroom, have your kids post to the principal or onto the school page of what they're doing in the music classroom. So that way they see the product that's happening. And it doesn't have to be anything grand. It's just what they're doing. It's so important for people to see it.
I saw a note from Bonnie that you have teachers sitting on all the school reopening task force, which is really, really great, but you're still kind of worried. I'd say go out and grab some of the resources and just keep pounding on the data and the templates. the fact that what you're recommending is a national recommendation, what you're suggesting to be implemented in the district is also had the imperator of the CDC, right? Or it's also it underpins the plans of districts across the country, because that's what these documents do. When there's a national guide, they serve as a guide kind of for everybody. So I just encourage you, when you feel like you're not getting through, bring more information forward. Bring a story forward. Bring what Lauren just mentioned, the voices of the children forward, and your own passion for it. Your own passion is, I feel so strongly that our children's hearts are aching right now, and we really have to use your own really personal and passionate language here. We just want to keep it all tipping in the direction of opportunities for children and the opportunity for you to maintain your vital role in a very, very creative place as a teacher. So we're all in this together for a lot of reasons, but this one too, right?
Definitely. And thank you, Steve, for reminding me as well. Here at Little Kids Rock, we've actually developed a few different things. He mentions we've developed virtual training with school districts that focuses on composing through songwriting and incorporates digital audio workstations and a project-based learning unit filled with lessons. And it also incorporates SEL competencies. And we're developing a virtual course for that for teachers who'd like to learn how to deliver SEL competencies, as well as blended beginning guitar class and blended beginning ukulele class. So we're developing these resources both for in-person use and also for virtual. So that way, and also for blended learning. So if there's any one of the three scenarios, we have these resources available for all of you. And as you mentioned, Mary, one of the great things about the guitar or the keyboard is that you don't necessarily have to blow into it and let out air that in that regard. So that's also really helpful. I'm personally a rock and roll screamer on the microphone, so that might be an issue for me. I'll have to work on that. But other than that, Modern Band is definitely in a great position to essentially take advantage of the situation and make sure that we're creating these rich learning environments for our students. All right, let's see if we have any other questions here. I see we have one here from Luciano, who says, I'm at a new school and parental participation is horrible. No PTA at all. Parents don't even pick their kids up until hours after school, to the point that administrators have to call DCFS on parents around 5:30 or 6 p.m. How can I help increase parental involvement in a lower socioeconomic area?
So, every community is different. And when I started the Community Opus project, we had it with the philosophy of El Sistema, which was more of social justice forward. And something that I did from the very beginning, from the onset, was I had parents come into the music classroom the last 8 minutes of the rehearsal, and it was required in order for their child to be in the program. And they had to sit in their child's chair while the child taught them one thing they learned on their instrument that day. And the progression of that really helped the parents understand how difficult it was for their child to learn an instrument and the importance of having their child be there on a regular basis. It didn't work for everybody, but it was a start for us. And I know our teachers deal with parental involvement every day, just because we have so many families that work multiple jobs, or now during the pandemic have been laid off of jobs. And so I think the best way to connect with them is just to get to know them. You never know somebody's story unless you have a conversation with them. And pre-pandemic, I would go to students' houses and, we missed you today at rehearsal. How's everything going? And I think opening up a line of communication and not being afraid to just have a conversation with a parent, you learn a lot, and that can kind of help you on your way. Mary, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Great points, Laura. Parent engagement is just like community engagement, and it is another form of advocacy. But most important, it's vital for student care, right? And we care about our students, and it's vital for that. And it happens. It can proceed, but you have to manage your own expectations that it happens very slowly. But one of the proven benefits of a music education program in a school is it does propel parent engagement. And it propels parent engagement around that. We don't have these gatherings now around concerts, right? I mean, this has been part of when you have all the beginners coming together and play, parents come out and they participate with their students. But maybe we have to do this now in the virtual realm, that the child is actually experiencing time with you. And I know they're short increments of time because you have to cover a lot of bases, but then you could, maybe you ask for some flexible time that you actually could be interacting with parents outside of the school hours, right? I mean, it might need some adjustments and some creativity, but so that you can say, well, I want you to play this part of the lesson for me with your mom sitting in her favorite chair, right? I mean, it's just, we have to dig into some kind of old-fashioned simple sensibilities about how people interact and what kids need and how we can reach other people, right? I think that's what I'm thinking about so much every day, that with this medium and with the sense that when will we gather again, it requires a little bit more from me to go out and make these connections. And that's something, if we all take on just a little bit more, just think how we can be expanding. And I think that's true of reaching a kid in their home with their parent right there or a caregiver right there, and that they are the audience and they are clapping. That's a big moment for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for that information. I think you reminded me of when I was in the classroom. We used to have our modern band set up right when the kids would let out, right when school would let out. So that way the parents that were there just to pick up their kids would all of a sudden get a concert, right in front of them. They could literally experience what it's like and they could see what their kids are doing throughout the day. So Mary, as you mentioned, I think how can we do that virtually is the big key right now, right? How can we create videos that they could share with their parents, or how can they involve maybe they could interview their parents on their own musical interests and kind of get them engaged that way. And I think oftentimes all it really takes is one moment for the parents to be engaged, and all of a sudden they're hooked. Like I've had parents that thank me afterwards for creating a connection between them and their children that they never had before, because they never had that space to talk about music until they had their children had an assignment that they had to involve their parents in. So I think parent involvement and just going beyond just even beyond the advocacy, just getting them engaged is very key. So I'm sorry we're out of time here. So if you have, I know we had some questions that didn't get answered. If you have any questions for myself, you can always email me, tony@littlekidsrock.org. Or if you have any questions, Mary and Lauren, I don't know if you want to leave your contact information as well. But we're gonna go. I want to thank both of you for being here. And any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
I'll put my email in the chat. I'm actually starting a blog in September just to address all of these different issues. And once that happens, I'd love to get suggestions on what to write about, but I'm starting on this whole COVID situation. But if you want to get a hold of me, please feel free to email me, and I'm happy to help because I know it's a massive task.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your summit, and we will be signing out. Have a great day.
Thank you.